And after my futile attempts to build a bow, you can see we need a little bit of help. So I've done a little bit of research, and I found a website that should kind of help us through the process. What we're going to do is make a bow out of just two simple materials. We are going to use a tropical hardwood called ipe and another wood that's not actually wood, it's a grass, I'm sure you've heard of it before, bamboo. So we're going to build a bow out of ipe and bamboo. And this bow should prove to be strong and powerful, and it should actually shoot an arrow with some speed. So let's take a look quickly at the design I'm thinking of, and we'll get started on the project. So what we're going to do is build a bow from this website. This website is called Poor Folk Bows, and it's a great site. This guy is a great writer. He does an excellent job explaining how to make a bow, and he has a number of different bow build-alongs. What we're going to do is we're going to build this our own way, but we're going to use some information from his bamboo-backed ipe bow build-along. So I spent some time looking at this one, and this is the one that I've decided we are going to build. So I want to give credit where credit's due. Our friend Sam Harper here gave us a lot of information to help us out. So we're going to be working off this. I'm not probably going to refer back to this website again, but I just wanted to show you where I got a lot of the information from. As with the trebuchet and the soapbox car, my first step was to make a drawing of the bow. I figured out how long I wanted the bow to be, how wide I wanted the bow to be, and how thick I wanted it to be. Then I went over to the table saw and I cut out a template for the bow. This is just going to be half the length of the bow. On the template, I marked out a taper according to the site that explains how to build the bow. This taper was marked out with a skinnier tip that goes down to a wider section where the riser and the handle will be. My next step was to cut the template out on the bandsaw, which you can see I'm doing here. After cutting it on the bandsaw, I went over to the belt sander and tuned it up. Okay, so we have our template here for the outside shape of our bow, or one of the limbs of our bow. So this represents one half the bow, and then we would flip it over and that would be the other half of the bow. So now what we want to do is transfer our template onto the wood that we're going to use for the bow. But one of the really cool things about ipe, and there's actually a lot of really cool things about ipe, is how strong and hard it is. So if you look on the wall of our shop, we have a poster. I don't know if you guys that have been in here, I don't know if you've noticed it before, but there's actually a poster on the wall of the shop here, and I want to show you what that poster is all about. We've got this poster here, and the poster has a couple of hundred different types of wood, so the most commonly used woods in the world, and these woods are ranked by hardness. So let's take a closer look at this poster right here. And one of the things that shows us is how hard the wood is. Scientists came up with this system in around 1922 or so. It was officially adopted. You can read here while I talk if you want. But what the system does is takes a ball that's about a ½ inch in diameter, and it sees how many pounds of pressure it takes to embed that ball into the piece of wood about a quarter of an inch deep or so. So if you look at these woods here, and you look at the wood we normally use, which is pine, you look at sugar pine here, it takes 380 pounds of pressure to embed that ½ inch ball, a quarter of an inch, into a piece of sugar pine. Okay, so, and then you can see in the United States, if we look at woods in the United States, we can go all the way up to, what have we got up there? Desert ironwood, which takes 3,260 pounds of pressure to embed that ball in. Now that's a very, 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 very hard wood. So let's go down here to South America and let's see if we can find ipe. So these are the South American hardwoods here. And there we go, there's ipe. So ipe, it would take
3,510 pounds of pressure to embed that steel ball into the ipe, which basically means ipe is really, 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 really hard. It's also very strong. So it makes the perfect wood for a bow, which is one of the reasons we're using it. One thing you'll notice too here that's kind of interesting, some of these woods have red exclamation points on them in a triangle. Those are the woods that are endangered, that you cannot buy commercially. Brazilian rosewood's a great example of that. You're not allowed to cut it, you're not allowed to sell it, and you're not allowed to buy it. So ipe is not on that list. It's still readily available. Let's go look at our piece of ipe and let's lay out our template.
So we've got our piece of ipe here, and we have our template here. So now what we want to do is take this piece of ipe, we need to mill it down so we can then trace our template on here. I'm going to mill it down right now using the table saw, the chop saw, and the thickness planer. We'll then go over to the bandsaw to cut the sides out, and we'll probably sand it on the belt sander. You're going to notice when I'm doing this, I'm going to wear a dust mask. The dust from ipe is not good to breathe. When I was a carpenter, I used to work with a lot of ipe when we were building decks, and I can tell you right now, I do not like the dust. So you'll see me wearing a mask while I'm cutting it. That's why I'm wearing it. Let's get to it. Now that we've got our wood kind of cut to width, I'm going to cut it to length, and then I'm going to run it through a thickness planer, and I'm going to plane it down so it's a little bit skinnier. From an ipe board that looked about like this to the main portion of our bow. So we now have a piece of ipe that's about a ½ inch thick, tapers down to about 1/4 inch in thickness, and it tapers from 1 3/8 down to about ½ inch. So this will be kind of the bulk of our bow. Tomorrow we'll work on building the handle, and then from there we should be able to laminate a piece of bamboo onto the back of it. Look forward to seeing you guys soon. Take care.